my, good morning. This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! Christian Aid Week starts tomorrow and the need for our help has never been greater. This year's Christian Aid project will help young unemployed people in Burundi, still one of the world's most poverty-stricken countries. And as she launches the No Small Change appeal, Christian Aid's local representative, Louise Whitelegg, wonders if she's a lover or a fighter. And why would someone give up a high-profile, well-paid, influential job? Maybe because all those seeming benefits just weren't enough. But first, some music, and it's another from the combined talents of Paul Field and Martin John Nichols, who've written a number of songs inspired by the issues that Christian Aid confronts time and again. This is the Song of Kingdom Come.
I have a voice, you have a voice, we have a voice, and when we sing together, a line is drawn and hope reborn. This is the song of kingdom come.
I have a voice, you have a voice, we have a voice. When we sing together, a line is drawn and hope reborn. This is the song of kingdom come. Heard the cries of distant neighbours, the dispossessed, the refugee, and God's command to feed the hungry and set them free, and set them free. We heard the word, the new commandment, and we reclaimed prophet's call to love the world without condition. God's love for all, God's love for all. I have a voice, you have a voice, we have a voice. When we sing together, a line is drawn and hope reborn. This is the song of kingdom come. A reckless love that knows no borders, that speaks the truth to those in power, that shines a light on cruel indifference. This is God's hour, this is God's hour, when we will stand against injustice, with all who live against the grain, until their poverty is over, and love shall reign, and love shall reign. I have a voice, you have a voice, we have a voice. When we sing together, is drawn and hope reborn. This is the song of kingdom come.
This is the Song of Kingdom Come, written for Christian Aid by Paul Field and Martin John Nichols. Damien Peter is a local Christian Aid supporter, and this morning he joins us to read some verses from the Gospel according to John. They've been chosen by Louise Whitelegg, our Ireland Christian Aid representative, who manages to link John's Gospel to a 60s song by the Kinks and turn it all into a challenging message for the week ahead.
A reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verses 9 to 17. I have loved you, just as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my own joy may be in you and your joy be complete. This is my commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. No one can have greater love than to lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends, if you do what I command you. I shall no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. I call you friends, because I have made known to you everything I have learned from my Father. You did not choose me, no, I chose you, and I commissioned you to go out and to bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you anything you ask him in my name. My command to you is to love one another.
I heard a song the other day that I hadn't heard for ages. It was I'm a Lover, Not a Fighter by the Kinks, which led me to thinking, am I a lover or a fighter? Should we be one or the other? Surely if you care passionately about something, if you love, then you're willing to fight for it. The passage we just heard, John 15, was all about love. My commandment is this: love each other as I have loved you. The passage was written at a time when the believers were fighting for the survival of Christianity, a world where Christianity was new to the landscape and where Christians were feared and persecuted. Difficult, trying times. Yet in John, we are told that the Christian response is love. It's a fallacy to think that Christians do not get angry. And Christians, when faced with injustice, poverty and inequality, should get angry. Whilst we are also reminded in Ephesians, be angry, but do not sin. John teaches us that God has planted the Spirit in each one of us. The Spirit has come in the form of the ability to forgive, to see past, and to love. God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. He has given us his Spirit, and if we allow that seed to grow, it will bear fruit. Living a life of love and applying the word of God to our everyday actions will bear fruit. This makes me think of India and other countries that are still badly affected and trying to get the pandemic under control. If the one thing COVID has taught us is that we need to protect each other as a globe, not just concern for our own country, but concern for all, ensuring that we all have access to the same vaccines and medical care. Love cannot be a selfish love. I chose you and appointed you so that you may go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. This is my command. Love each other. So am I a lover or a fighter? No, I'm a Christian. I will fight against injustice. I will fight against poverty. I will fight against inequality. And I love the kind response to the crisis. But the best bit is, being part of a wider Christian family, I know I'm not on my own. Next week sees the start of Christian Aid Week. It's running from the 10th to the 16th of May, and it presents us with an opportunity for you to bear fruit. Let's help the fight against injustice, poverty and inequality for our global brothers and sisters in Burundi. And he has given us this commandment: anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. It's been such a challenging time. The global pandemic has had a major effect on all charities, with a reduction of usual fundraising activities, but sadly, the need for our love has become even greater still. Those living in poverty have been disproportionately affected by the virus. They do not have the ability or the infrastructure required to cushion themselves from the worst effects. There's no furlough scheme in Burundi. You don't work and you don't eat. Will you help show the love for your global brothers and sisters? This year's project is a special one. It's in the north of Burundi, where we will be setting up a scheme to train the unemployed youth in the art of farming. They will form a cooperative, sharing crops and profits. They will be able to start their own business with microloans and be supported through the whole process. It's a real opportunity for change. It's our way of supporting them to live a life free from poverty. Can you help us show the love this Christian Aid Week? Will you help us fight to educate, to give our global family in Burundi an opportunity to make a life for themselves and to be truly independent? This week, more than ever, let's renew our pledge to love one another, for love is a gift from God.
I hear a baby crying, a sad sound, a lonely sound. I want to take her in my arms, and then I dry away all her tears. I see a boy who's frightened, a young boy with old eyes. I long to say, you're welcome here. You can be happy now that you're home. We're all a part of one world. We all can share the same dream. And if you just reach out to me, then you will find deep down inside I'm just like you.
Thank you, Damien and Louise, the fighter for justice and a more loving world. Any mention of Christian Aid always reminds me of someone I met around 10 years ago, but whose wisdom and honesty has stayed with me ever since. And I thought today might be a good time to listen again to some words from Loretta Minghella, who was Director of Christian Aid for 7 years from 2010. During that period, she visited the island, spoke at a president's breakfast, and kindly allowed me to interview her. A trained lawyer, her background was in high-profile finance. She'd been head of enforcement, law and policy at the Financial Services Authority and gave up her job as chief executive of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme in order to join Christian Aid. So why might someone take a big salary drop and move into an entirely different field?
I'd become a financial services regulatory person and a financial services lawyer. And I began to long to be able to put my faith right in the middle of my day and for it to be the whole frame of my life. But I didn't know how to do that. And I thought, this is the price I pay for the life that I've led without God, is I'm going to be stuck being a financial services lawyer forever. I will never get out of it and be able to bring God right into the middle of my life. Until, of course, over time, God made it possible for me to make some changes. Two things happened to me in a relatively short period, two very, very difficult things. One personal and one professional thing. The professional thing was the banking crisis. In 2007, 8, 9, 10, I was running the Financial Services Compensation Scheme in the UK, which looks after you if your insurance company goes bust or your bank or your investment advisor or whoever. And of course, when I took the job, banks didn't really go bust. So people were saying to me, you must have quite a quiet job. And it was actually quite a busy job. We paid out £1 billion over the first 7 years of our existence, and I was part of that. But then, of course, the banking crisis hit and it became very fast and very big. And one night in 2008, I found myself borrowing £14 billion, and paying it out again almost immediately. And this was for the collapse of the Bradford and Bingley, and then transferring all its customers with this borrowed money to Santander, Abbey, then Santander. And that did two things for me. One, it made me think, when we see a financial crisis and we see people who need protecting and we see the system needs protecting, we find £14 billion on a Saturday night and we manage to borrow it and we get it out of the door again. But aren't there nearly 1 billion people in the world who don't have enough to eat? And isn't that a crisis for which money needs to be found as a matter of an emergency? And it just struck me as an injustice that I just couldn't really get my mind around. So instead of going home and feeling like, my goodness, I've just done this most amazing, hooray, how did I do that? What an amazing team we've been to pull this off. I just felt really incredibly disturbed by it, actually. I don't think it was the wrong thing to do at all. I think it needed doing, but it told me something about our priorities as a world. Who do we value? And that jarred with my faith, the sense that God is for everyone, every person made in the image of God, every person of inherent dignity and infinite worth. How are we prioritising these other people? And that had been brought home to me by the other thing that I mentioned that happened earlier in the year, and that was the death of my brother, Anthony. And he was a fantastically gifted filmmaker, writer. He was an Oscar winner. He was really successful and very loved for his work and as a person. And it wasn't those things that he had achieved that we missed him for. We were heartbroken, obviously, as a family when he died. But it was him, the unique beauty of him that we missed. And he is irreplaceable. But I learnt from his death that it is the unique beauty of the individual that's irreplaceable. And that's true of every person. So that when this incident, this Bradford and Bingley thing happened later in the year, I said, how are we valuing the unique beauty of every person? And how am I doing that with my professional life? I thought I need to change. Ant was only 54 when he died. I didn't want to go through my life thinking one day I'll have a chance to put God into the middle of my work and find a way of expressing this belief that we are here to love every person for their unique beauty and dignity. And I needed to make some sense out of these things that were disturbing me and change my work. And so I was absolutely thrilled when this job was advertised. I looked at it and I thought, this would be the perfect job for somebody. And I showed it to Olivia. I said, this would be the perfect job for somebody. I mean, what kind of person gets a job like that? And she said, Mum, if you don't apply, you will never know if it could be you. Well, that was a little God intervention. I did apply and I was lucky.
You're listening to an interview with Loretta Minghella, recorded some 10 years ago when she visited the island in her role as Director of Christian Aid. And if you've ever wondered if campaigning has any effect, this is what she said when she spoke at the All-Ireland President's Breakfast.
Don't forget that if they don't hear from you, they don't know you care. Some people say that actually charities are getting too political these days, but the point is we can't tackle poverty just by our brilliant work in the field. In Bangladesh, I can put up a flood shelter, but I can't stop climate change. It's politicians that have to hear from us to make the brave decisions for the longer term. And Jesus is our role model because the Bible is very clear. He went to the margins. He showed his love for people at the margins. And we must show our love for people at the margins who are suffering here and now because of climate change, who will suffer more if we don't do anything about it. Some people say it's no point in campaigning because it doesn't make a difference, but the Jubilee Debt campaign made a difference. The anti-apartheid campaign made a difference. We can make a difference. Because we are not on our own, because we have God at our side, you can make change happen. And we read that, don't we, in Isaiah 58. When you feed the hungry, when you break the bonds of injustice, then God will say, here I am.
Now I've got a hammer, yeah, and I've got a bell. I've got a bell to ring. I've got a song to sing all over this land. All over this land. It's the hammer of justice. It's the hammer of justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's the bell of freedom. It's the song about the love between my brothers and my sisters. All over this land. All over this land. All over this land. All over this land.
More music from Paul Field and Martin John Nichols. Phil Crane is another passionate Christian Aid supporter and joins us now with a new book in his hand.
Christian Aid was founded just after the Second World War, so this year is celebrating its 75th birthday. Although I suspect that celebrate is not the correct word here. Perhaps instead we should be angry that after such a long time the world still remains a profoundly unequal place. At the moment we witness on our screens the terrible images of Indians with COVID, desperate for oxygen and a hospital bed, which we know would be available to us. In the face of such injustice, we would not be acting inappropriately if we felt anger alongside compassion. To mark its anniversary, Christian Aid has brought out a new prayer book entitled Rage and Hope. Prayers have been written by a wide range of contributors, including its past and present directors. One such prayer is from Michael Taylor, who led the charity back in the 90s. His honest prayer is based around a chance encounter in a refugee camp with a woman who had fled destitution and terror. Bringer of good news to the poor, you said she was worth more to your father than a sparrow. I remember she looked as thin as a bird. You said he counts every hair on our heads. I remember the few she had were wet with tears and rain. You said your father will clothe us like the lilies of the field. I remember the rags that shielded her from nothing. You said we will all be fed and not to worry. I remember how she held her little one to her dry breast. You said the meek would inherit the earth. I remember she had lost even the little that she had. You promised magnificently to lift high those of low degree, but the world was still holding her down. You said the sad would be comforted, but here there was no comfort to be had. You told the humble not to be afraid. I remember the fear in her eyes. Help me to channel my anger at contradictions into seeking with you and her that earthly paradise of peace and plenty where contradictions are reconciled. Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief.
Thank you, Phil Crane, Damien Peter and Louise Whitelegg, supporting Christian Aid Week. This year's project in poverty-stricken Burundi, where over 70% of the population have no work at all, will be life-changing for young people. If you'd like to be part of creating a more just world, Louise Whitelegg, our island representative, is your best contact. You'll find her on Facebook and she's always happy to get your text or a call on 474-275. There'll be lots of events to support Christian Aid over the coming months. Look out for local publicity and do please join in if you possibly can. Louise's number once again is 474-275. It's a great sign that church life is really picking up again, with lots of things to mention on today's notice board. St Luke's Church in Baldwin celebrate their anniversary today, and from 3 o'clock this afternoon there'll be an informal get-together, including a free-to-enter cake baking competition, a cake sale, a walk up to the old Tynwell site, a treasure hunt and an art exhibition, followed by the church service at 6:30 this evening. Bring along your own picnic and enjoy an afternoon that offers something for everyone. But as this event is largely outdoors, it's subject to cancellation if the weather is poor. Take a look at St Luke's Facebook page to make sure if it's all going ahead. Tonight at 6:30, the Mariners Choir are in Ballaugh Parish Church. As with all Mariners services, supper and community hymn singing always follow each service. And next Sunday evening, the 16th, the Mariners will be in Crosby Methodist Church for a service, again at 6:30, where Mrs. Rita Norrie will preach. Thursday, May the 13th, is the Feast of the Ascension. It's meaningful to Christians as it marks the completion of Jesus' work on earth and his ascension, his return to heaven to prepare a place for all who follow him. In St Thomas's Church in Finch Road here in Douglas, there will be a communion service at 7 o'clock on Thursday evening. And also on Thursday evening, but in the cathedral in Peel, Bishop Peter will celebrate a diocesan Eucharist at 6:30. St Thomas's Church in Finch Road here in Douglas are currently offering lunch every Friday between noon and 1:30. It's 2 courses and hot drinks. There's no fixed charge, but a minimum donation of £7 per person is suggested. All proceeds will be divided between church funds and Bridge the Gap, a facility at Nobles Hospital for young people who undergo extended periods of hospitalisation. Tasty Tabor lunches resume this Friday the 14th in Mount Tabor, Port St Mary Methodist Church. They're served from noon to 1:15 and are just £5 per person. On Friday night, there's a beetle drive and puddings night in Onken Methodist Church Hall, starting at 7:30. Bring along a pudding to share, bring along a friend, and have a great night. Admission is free, but support for the raffle on the night would be appreciated, as this is a fundraiser for the church. On now to next Saturday the 15th, and the Ladies of Bride Methodist Church invite you to a delicious lunch in Ramsey Town Hall next Saturday from noon till 2 p.m. The cost is £10, and to reserve your place, phone Claire on 880-692. Café Lingo is the friendly group that offers a helping hand to those for whom English is not their first language. During lockdown, their lessons and meet and chat conversation groups have continued to meet each week on Zoom. But during this month of May, they'll be continuing the Zoom groups, but also restarting their lessons in person in their usual home, the Top Hall in the Promenade Methodist Church here in Douglas. Each Saturday in May, there'll be in-person lessons at the Prom Church from 10:30 to 11:30. There'll also be lessons on Zoom each Saturday morning from 10:30 and a meet and chat group on Zoom only each Wednesday morning at 10:30. The link for Zoom meetings will be posted on the Café Lingo Isle of Man Facebook page the evening before each Zoom meeting. As always, Karen is the go-to lady if you need more information, and her number is 458 340. Looking to next Sunday, the 16th, there's no service next Sunday in Trinity Methodist Church at Rosemount. Instead, the Trinity congregation will be joining with the church family at the Promenade Methodist Church, Douglas, for a service there at 10:30. The Royal British Legion was formed 100 years ago this month, and there'll be a service of thanksgiving next Sunday, May the 16th, at 3 o'clock in St George's Church in Douglas to celebrate the anniversary. It'll be a full Legion service led by the Venerable Andy Brown, and the Lieutenant Governor and members of Tynwald will be in attendance. There's a warm welcome for all, and refreshments will be served afterwards. And that's all that we have time for today. Just a little reminder that this programme is also available as a podcast from 7 a.m. each Sunday morning. It's easy to access via our website, manxradio.com, and you'll find it on all the main podcast platforms too. News for the notice board and requests for your favourite hymns to be included in future programmes can all be sent to me via email, judithlay@manxradio.com, or by post if you prefer. Manx Radio, PO Box 1368, Douglas IM 991SW. I'm back tonight at 9 with Sundown, easy listening music to round off your weekend. But for now, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed, safe and peaceful week, and a very good morning.
Manx Radio.